Welcome to a football show Thursday edition here on the 440 Sports Network. My name is Braden Gall. That is Zach Lyons, and we are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group. We've got a lot of stuff to get to today on the show. Zach, how are you, sir?
I don't sound sick because I've been accused of now faking it by one of my friends who called me this morning, and then my wife before she left for work today. I am sick. If you see me start squinting my eyes, it's because my eyes are watery. I'm congested. I'll probably have to mute and sneeze and all this kind of stuff. So I just want everybody to know I may not sound sick.
Okay. But you're playing hurt. You're playing hurt. So if you're squinting at me, it's not just because normally it's just because of my takes. This time it's because you might be sick.
Or if I'm doing that, if I'm making sure my eyes can open.
Also normally happens because of my opinions. Now it's actually happening because you're sick. And if you can't hear me, it's because you're blocking out everything I'm saying. Now it's because you actually can't hear me. So hello, gents is correct to Bo and to Stoney, all of you in there. We do have some new news, as the fucking Kelseys would say. We've got some new news about the draft party. The links are in the YouTube comments. I'll put them in there here momentarily for you folks. But let's first get to what we're going to do on the show today. So we went kind of round by round and looked at offensive line targets on Monday. We're going to go through today, and we're going to look at the edge players and the defensive linemen. Clearly, and this is also going to be a big part of the conversation today, ran Carthon's offseason strategy. Gave us a little insight. He showed up after L'Jarius Sneed. He unprompted. He wanted to talk an unprompted press conference, which I think is a great step for him. And I think we're starting to see some growth. I also have some.
Gosh, I mean, if Gentry does not send him a box of fucking or a basket of flowers, and PK needs to send him a fruit basket for finally doing what they had begged him to do.
But it's all because
he stood up and he should have got a standing ovation. That's what y'all should have done.
It's only because it's such an easy win. And just look how I'm going to glowingly review Ran Carthon today because he gave us 16 minutes of conversation. No, it's actually more about the actual offseason strategy. So I think there's some really genuinely good, positive stuff because you and I have spent, Zach, a lot of time talking about sort of unwieldy processes, right? Like weird kind of the way the Titans have done things has been weird. The outcomes occasionally have been very good, sometimes not so good. But the processes have been a little off. It's been a little wonky. I think there's a lot of praise for some of the processes here in terms of what they've accomplished through free agency, and now we enter the draft. A lot of folks saying the same things about the draft, whether it's Carthon or Brian Callahan over the last few weeks. So we can get into some of the strategy stuff. Certainly, I want to get your reaction to L'Jarius Sneed. I do have one sort of major question about Sneed that I think is interesting. But then we're going to spend some time on the edge and defensive line players coming up a little bit later on. So Karski says you mock it and then you discuss it. You discuss the info it produced. Yes. Yeah. I'm openly admitting I'm going to rave review what Ran Carthon had to say because he finally said something to us without being asked to do it. Paul, of course, you can check out his conversation with Ran. Also, the Paul Karski podcast coming up at the top of the hour. So following us, stay tuned. Slide on over to the Karski podcast YouTube page as well, and you can hear and catch his show as well. So make sure you're doing that. Football and other F words, stackintheinbox.com. You can catch Zach, of course, writing for paulkarski.com. Obviously, Mike Herndon over there as well. You got all the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network, Hot Read Podcast, Music City Audible now as well.
Listen, I'm putting together right now for stackintheinbox.com. I'm taking Stoney's. It's a fantastically written, poorly designed draft guide, but but that's the point. He is not the design guy. I'm the design guy. Right now, efforting by the draft to have a over 220 something prospect draft guide available for stackingtheinbox.com paid subscribers. So there you go. And it looks pretty. It's a very pretty draft guide.
Square Up says L'Jarius Sneed green dot season will move mountains. We will discuss the green dot. Ran Carthon mentioned it, but I think it's more about what they think they can find in the draft more than anything else. So we shall see. So lots of stuff to get to today on the show. But let's start with the draft party information.
Yes.
So we've posted the links in the YouTube comments for each of the last two shows. I'm going to do that again today. We have not really posted it out there to the public. We want to make sure you folks that watch the show, that are involved in the show, have first opportunity at this. There's only a limited number of tickets for Thursday night. It's going to be the same as last year. Stoney, Zach, and I are going to go live as soon as the Titans pick, whether that's at 7 or, in my opinion, maybe 9 or 11, which I think is going to happen. But we're going to go live and do our show live reaction with all of you, the audience there watching, at Sinker's awesome offices right there at Track 1 building in Wedgwood, Houston. Open bar, open food, all you can eat, all you can drink, catered by our great and amazing friends over at Edley's. So
Best barbecue in Nashville.
Edley's Barbecue is going to be serving all the food for Thursday night's draft party. Tickets are available. They're $40. Every penny, not like after costs. Every penny goes to the Our Kids charity that I've been working with for over a decade. It's one of the largest children's charities in the entire country, taking care of sexually abused children in Middle Tennessee. It is an important and critical organization in our community. So you can come have fun, all you can eat, all you can drink barbecue, or all you can eat barbecue, all you can drink booze, and you get to hang out with all of us, Stoney, Zach, myself, a few other people, and we're going to have a big old time like we did last year. Also,
drink and eat for the kids. Like that's such an easy thing. It's free. It's just like what? How much is it for Thursday?
Like it's like $40. $40. Every penny.
You get free all you can eat at Edley's until it runs out, obviously. And then trust me, the booze will be a flowing, and there will be plenty of booze. It's a no-brainer. You could not go.
You keep talking. I'm going to get the link.
Titans. Let me tell you something. I don't know how much the Titans charge for their draft party. It may be free, but then you're going to have to pay for everything when you get in there. And it's like $16 beers, right? When you go over there, it is $40 is not a meal that you can have in Nashville where you can drink and eat as much as you can and only spend $40.
So I'm going to post the link right now in the comment section. So there you go for the Thursday night tickets. It's right there in the YouTube comment section, so you can go check it out right now. You can get the time stamp if you're listening via podcast. I think we raised over $1,000 last year for Our Kids. We're going to shoot to double that this year because on Friday night, here's the deal. Here's the deal on Friday night. Friday night exclusive event. We're going to sell 11 tickets. I think we've already got like 6 or 7 of them sold. So there's only like 3 or 4 tickets left. If we get enough and enough people still want to go, maybe we can open it up for a few more. But we're going to limit it to 11 because we want it to be an extremely off-the-record, intimate experience where all of you get to ask Zach and me and maybe some other folks, some special guests, anything you want. So it's all off the record. We'll tell you the stories we can't say on the air. We're going to have a ton of fun. Obviously, Sinker's Beverages is bringing you all of this. They are going to bring you a high-end 5 bourbon flight. One of them rhymes with Winklevoss twins or something like that. There's going to be some very seriously good stuff there. So that $100 gets you in on Friday night. Special guests, private conversations, off the record, and dinner, 3-course dinner by Lachlan Table, folks. 3-course dinner.
I know it sounds expensive because like $100, right? Everybody's like, oh man, $100. But first off, it's a more intimate setting. We'll go. I mean, maybe I'll go live just for like 3 minutes after the pick for purposes of trying to get some Musk bucks off of Twitter. Some Musk bucks. Elon, will pay you.
Okay.
Musk bucks.
We might do something very short and reactionary.
Yeah, very short. Yeah. But for the most part, you guys will get ins and outs, any kind of reactions, anything like that. Any questions from the time of Rand Carthon and Vrabel? There's some stuff like that. We'll give you as much information as we can. But it's $100. Lachlan Table, you're lucky to get out $100 by yourself with 2 bourbon drinks.
Yep.
And a full 3-course meal.
Yep.
But you're getting 5 bourbon drinks, and one of them rhymes with periwinkle,
which
is a much better way to say it.
I just watched the Social Network the other night.
I mean, I couldn't, when he told me, because Braden was like, hey, I'm working on getting something really special. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe he's going to like get Carrabba's or Olive Garden or something. No, comes in with freaking Lachlan Table to begin the show. It can't be.
Thank you. Ed says, is there a way to contribute for those living out of state? and cannot attend. Thank you, Ed. That is really awesome and gracious. And the link for the Our Kids charity is in the show notes now as well. If you're listening to the pod, but it is also in the YouTube chat. OurKidsCenter.com is the charity. It is truly some of the most remarkable and amazing people in the city doing incredibly difficult and hard work. So again, $100 on Friday night. You get 5 bourbons, a 3-course meal from Lyons Table, off the record conversation. And we are going to stay deep into the night and talk football for all of the second and third round. And then, of course, on Thursday night, you get Edley's, which is almost as good. For $40, you come in, all you can eat, all you can drink as well. So 2 great events.
That's not
Thursday
enough.
and Friday night.
If that's not enough for you, 440 Sports YouTube channel, hit subscribe, because on day 3, marathon between me and Stoney. We're going for marathon.
Can I tag in and help out?
Yes, can come tag in. But we are going like all the round, the entire draft.
I love it.
The whole time. We did it last year. We had plenty to talk about, plenty to discuss. So there you go.
I can't freaking wait. It's gonna be great. Stoney says you guys could reasonably ask for a kidney with value like that. That's probably true, but you know what? We'll donate that kidney to the kids. Like everything is for the kids. Every single penny is for the kids. So we do appreciate all you guys for supporting us. And really, honestly, it's for you guys. Sinkers Beverages is here for you guys. The Kingston Group is here for you guys. Edley's and Lyons Table, they're supporting you guys and the charity and the kids because, Titans fans, you guys are great. All of you guys who hang out and watch all these shows are great and consume all this content. And it means a lot to us that you're a part of our community and we're a part of yours. So the bottom line is we want to do the best thing we can for you guys. So we're going to maximize that $100 and that $40 for you. But the links are in the YouTube show notes. We are not pushing those publicly yet because we want all of you, the audience, to get access to them first because we want you to be there. Sure, we want everybody to come, but we want the most loyal folks that are there. And I already know a few of you guys that are coming on Friday night and very excited to have the crew coming out. So it's going to be a ton of fun. Okay. Legarius Sneed speaks to the media on Tuesday. I don't have a ton. I do want to say hat tip to you for your guaranteed money guess between 43 and 45 million. Turns out that was spot on. So
I may actually know what I'm talking about with the salary cap.
I'll give you credit for that. I thought, though, he had a ton of praise for Calvin Ridley in terms of what he had to say there. But honestly, I didn't really hear anything that I didn't expect to hear from Sneed. The one question I have for you is when he was asked about the knees, he kind of was like, no, everything's fine. There's no big deal. There's no problems. And then he says, I know what to do with my knee, quote. Basically, he knows how to manage them. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to hear what your response was to that. Does that mean it's just something he kind of has to deal with for most of his career, no matter what, but he knows how to deal with it? Are you more concerned, less concerned? What was your reaction to that?
Well, we've heard people around the owners meeting when PK was down there was talking about that. Their concerns that there's a degenerative knee issue here, which means very little without knowing the extent. For us, it means very little. So that comes down to the team doctors, people with medical degrees, figuring out what that issue is like. And I've heard a few people say, well, how can you trust this medical team? They gave a green light to Caleb Farley and Julio Jones. And sure, Julio Jones passed a physical. To that extent is what we know, right? Because Julio Jones's injury was not a no degenerative issue, right? Everybody kind of knew that there was a massive knee issue with Legarius Sneed, which is on a different scale. I think it was an ankle back then. And so gave a green light to Jeffrey Simmons' knee, by the way. Just want to point that out. Right. But and listen, to be honest, we don't really know if they gave a green light in the pre-draft process to Caleb Farley or Jeffrey Simmons. We don't necessarily know. And I think maybe there is some reporting out there that I've missed, but as far as I know that John Robinson, whatever he saw in the medicals, he was not concerned with.
Okay, look, so, you can say a lot of things about how stupid and dumb and terrible and anything you want about John Robinson. I cannot imagine any GM in the history of GMing in any sport where the medical staff comes to you and says, "Do not draft this player," and then the GM
may not said that, right? I mean,
it just seems unlikely. Like, he may be dumb, but he's
it
not that
doesn't seem
stupid.
that unlikely because he is the analytics department attitude. He could probably have said, "I am the medical department" at some point too. And listen, sometimes you take a risk for a good player, and that was what we talked about with Caleb Farley, right? I mean,
That's true.
we
We like to pick,
ourselves
yeah.
even had that mentality. He's a guy that if he fell to you, you take that risk. So why couldn't a GM have that same mentality,
I guess
right?
that's true. I guess that's true.
And maybe what I'm saying is that we don't know the extent of the degenerative knee issue. It could happen in 10 years. It could happen in 2. Either way, the Tennessee Titans are only on the hook for 2 years in all practical realms of looking at this contract. They're only on the hook for 2 years. Not a big deal. So that's kind of where, to me, it's like, at least here's the thing. He's worked on it. He's played through it. And he knows, he's confident that he has a plan on what to do and how to handle it. That's a lot better than what you get with most of these guys. Some of these guys just play on through and do whatever they want. Some of these guys don't do anything in rehab. Some of these guys go to Miami and still get injured. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least he knows.
Who are you referring to?
At least he knows that he has that what he needs to do. And I think when you come in with an already proven plan, right? Because this plan was already used last year. This load management plan, this practice plan, which remember, he did not miss a lot of practices. All of these plans have already been used. So they are a proven formula. And then on top of that, you have a new strength and conditioning staff that have high praises from people in college and such. And then you have this Chad Brinker injury algorithm AI thing that he's got that was helped designed by people that went into the I'm going to butcher this thing, but in the medical field on the data side, engineering side of medicine. So why to me, it's just like, okay, so L'Jarius Sneed has a knee issue. Well, if he goes and breaks his collarbone, I mean, it's the same thing as if he has a knee issue, right? Like what I'm saying, you just can't, you can't really concern yourself with it. And sure, if you want to do some revisionist history and stuff, but I'll say it again, like I said with Julio Jones and like I did with Caleb Farley, if it happens, hey, guess what? We should have looked at the signs, but at this point in time, a 2025 third, yeah, you do this trade 9 times out of 10 and all that kind of stuff. I don't care if the Vikings backed out of it for whatever reason. I don't care that the Colts did, because everybody's taking this Arrowhead thing and running with it, this Arrowhead pride. That's Music City Miracles. Not to disparage Music City Miracles, but that is the Music City Miracles version of Kansas City. Are we really trusting them to know what they're talking about the ins and outs of trades over Matt Verderam and other guys?
Glory Day Sports says he's not Todd Gurley or Jay Ajayi. Even if it's degenerative, it seems like it's a low risk. Here's the thing, to your point. Caleb Farley is a perfect example. What was the injury everyone was concerned about with Caleb Farley? It was his back. It was the vertebrae.
Which is a high-risk injury.
Which has nothing to do with why he tore his ACL. It has nothing to do with it. They're completely unrelated. So if he tears up a knee because of the knee injury, then we can discuss it. If he breaks his collarbone, it's not because of his knee being a problem over the last couple of years. As I stand by how I felt about this, which I think is similar to Tajay Spears, which is I don't think in the short term it's a major concern. If they want to keep him for the extra 2 years on the back end of the contract that they have an out for, because they have an out after the first 2 years.
They have an out for every year after that. So like if they make it through, like I said on F Words yesterday, they go through 2 years and then, hey, we're going to keep you on for year 3. Well, all the guaranteed money that Hap kicks in at year 3 gets paid year 3. Yeah. So you still have year 4, a tremendous out in year 4, if year 3 is the year that the knee issue flares up.
I could see the knee, in my opinion, for Spears and again, I'm not even saying they're the same issue. I'm just using them as examples. Could Tajay Spears' career be 1,200 carries and 8 seasons because of the knee, instead of 1,500 carries or 1,800 carries or 2,000 carries and 12 seasons? I think that's absolutely possible and a concern 6 years from now. Like, it's not. Yeah. I don't see him, either of them, if they get hurt this year or next year because the particulars of their body, their knee, led to another knee injury, then we'll be wrong. But otherwise, I think it's a long-term thing. And I talked to some folks. I've said this before on the show. I talked to some folks in Kansas City. They are not concerned about the knee in the short term. They would keep an eye on it in the long term. And that could be after the 4-year contract, could be in year 4, could be in year 3. That is up to the Titans.
When he's retired.
That could be,
right? I mean, isn't it seem kind of like a knee issue that's like, okay, well, I retire maybe earlier than what I'm supposed to, maybe 31, 32.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna give me a bunch of problems.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's where we're at now until proven otherwise. Zach says, but what if he trips because of his bad knee and breaks his collarbone instead? Yes, I do appreciate that. Then they'd be obviously connected. So let's get to the Rand part of this. Also, by the way, we're going to talk about the Houston Texans. I didn't mention that, but we're going to talk about the Houston Texans going for it, pushing all the chips to the middle of the table with the trade for Stephon Diggs. You write down.
I hope he tears that locker room apart over the summer. I just hope he's a headache.
Not many 4 consecutive year All-Pro or Pro Bowl receivers have been traded twice. It's happened every now and then. Adams and Hill, but getting traded twice.
Did he still get All-Pro last year?
Not all Pro Bowl. Sorry, Pro Bowl.
Okay, sorry.
But you write down the supporting cast around CJ Stroud. Holy fucking shit! So we'll get to that in a second. All right. So I want to get to Carthon because I find this the most interesting. Number one, easy win to allow yourself 15 or 16 minutes of questions about the free agency. We're at a starting point where he says draft meetings for the Titans are going to start next week. Free agency seems like it could be largely finished for now. He definitely spoke about the safety market and the tackle market, still having plenty of guys playing a lot of snaps that have a lot of experience that could help them in those positions. They'll keep those lines of communication open, but it does feel like him coming out and doing this signifies sort of the end of free agency for now. They're going to focus on the draft, and then maybe they come back to it a little bit later on. A couple of things that I want to say positively and in terms of what I took away from Rand Carthon. He said they had a targeted plan coming into free agency. They had talked to ownership about it. The power structure in the front office, Robinson, Brinker, and Carthon talked about their targeted plan. Those are the words that he's using. They came into free agency with the targeted plan. That is not how they ended free agency. Some of those targets they got. Lloyd Cushenberry, Tony Pollard, Cheeto Awuzie, all those names, right? Those are the guys. The original plan did not include Calvin Ridley and L'Jarius Sneed. I like
Plan A. Let's call it Plan A.
Yeah, sure.
I like that.
Well, because to your point, I think every front office, it's sort of like a coaching search. You have to have like 6 candidates, right? Like you have to have six plans. I agree with you. What I like is that number one, they saw and took advantage of an opportunity that was presented to them. They executed that plan pretty ruthlessly when they wanted to do it, when they got to that plan. And they showed their ability to adapt and evolve their strategy in real time to go make things happen about their team that didn't include clearly the targeted plan, which was Danico Autry and Aziz Al-Shair. They lost those 2 pieces. They showed the ability as a group to adapt, evolve, and quickly pivot to another strategy. For me, that is a sign of like not maturity and growth, but like control and understanding what they're doing. It doesn't mean they're going to win a Super Bowl. No, but I like this process. And we've talked a lot about how we don't always like the Titans process. So that was one of my big takeaways from Carthon's conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I look at it and I think that when you think about the Tennessee Titans plans of the past, they kind of been uninspiring to say the least, I guess. It's like started out really good in 2016, then 2017 was kind of a lull year, but they added some pieces young, and then 2019 they made a lot of good moves. It feels like to me that whether this is all Rand Carthon's hands-free, no Vrabel involvement, or this is just a really good team environment, to me, I don't care. I don't care if it's all Rand Carthon driven or if it's the best collaboration where Rand Carthon just makes the final decision and he takes it to Miss Amy or whatever, and all that kind of stuff. But what you see is I feel like a team that undersold what their plan was in free agency heading into it. Like, you heard all about it, and then they really undersold everything they were going to do. And now I think most people are pleasantly surprised. And when you look at the rest of the AFC South, specifically when you look at the other two teams, not that there aren't the Texans and Titans, they're a team that kind of gets it, right? Like they're a team that has taken advantage of a young quarterback and building quickly and appropriately around him. Have they made some missteps? Yes. Kenneth Murray, likely going to be a misstep. The other linebacker spot, a misstep. Safety, verdict still out because, I mean, there's still quality safeties out there. So maybe they're just playing it smart and just letting the draft come to them. But at the end of the day, if you look at what the Jaguars have done under Trevor Lawrence, not really anything as aggressive or as good as this, and it's coming back to bite them in the ass, and it will bite them in the ass again this year. And then you're going to be out of a Trevor Lawrence rookie quarterback deal. And then the Colts, their big free agent move was signing Joe Flacco. Now that was woo. You spent $8 million on Joe Flacco.
Well, they spent lots of millions on their own guys, obviously, but
they're defenders. Right? I mean, like,
yeah, that's true.
Okay, Zaire Franklin. The only guy that I can think of that is an impact player is Michael Pittman Jr. Okay, and it was a great deal. I thought it was a very good deal. But what about the rest of the free agency?
There's a couple. You mentioned safety out there, so I've got a lot of Rand quotes I want to ask you about real quick. He said the direction of the safety market could go either way after the draft, which I thought was interesting because it means that it now could be the right time to grab a safety, or maybe after the draft is the right time to grab a safety. I'm curious how you took that. Does that mean you think they should be more aggressive before the draft? Because he clearly was talking about safety as the one position. He did include tackle a little bit later, but when asked is the right or left tackle on the roster, he goes, "We'll take draft questions later."
I look at it this way with safety. It just kind of depends on what they've already sussed out, right? I don't know where the negotiations have ended or stopped with Marcus May or Justin Simmons, where other safeties that may be out there are those guys that represent them. If they see the Titans don't draft a safety, are they going to ask for more money? I don't know. That's something that you kind of have to trust with the NFL. I would assume from the sports agent perspective, if the Titans don't take Marcus May or try to sign Marcus May or Justin Simmons now, and then they go through the draft and don't draft a safety, well, the Titans have lost all the leverage. Yeah. But
I agree.
There's also going to be other teams that maybe have neglected safety. So you kind of have to, it's a delicate balance is what it is. And that's when you don't have intimate knowledge behind the scenes, you just kind of have to speculate. I would assume that safety, if you are a team that is needing a safety before the draft, and you don't draft a safety, a relatively high-end safety, maybe fourth round is the latest, and you go back into the safety market, and there's multiple teams in the safety market, that's really good for the safety free agent class.
Yes.
Not good for the teams.
It could go the other way, too, though, also, whereas, like, let's say there's 5 teams that are in it for Simmons. I'm just going to use that number. One of them drafts Tyler Nubin, one of them drafts Javon Bullard, one of them drafts Cooper DeJean and moves him to safety. All of a sudden, you're taking 3 out of the 5 teams that need a safety. They're not going to spend big money now on a safety. So it really is like the market could be at its peak right now, could be at its lowest right now, could be higher later, could be lower later. We really just don't have any clue. I like the one in the hand versus 2 in the bush. You got the money, go get a safety. Take that off your board. To make it non-stress related from the draft perspective. Because here's the other big takeaway from Rand's conversation to me. The focus is we're going to build a complete defense and we're going to, quote, add up front on both sides. So they are clearly going to focus on the line of scrimmage in the draft. And if that is the case, because you could still get a tackle in free agency, go get your safety now to take that off of the out of the equation so you can focus on offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and linebackers. And then you can just focus on all of that all you want to. Take some best available, 4th round, 5th round, 7th round, whatever. But I to me, it tells, like, if you go safety in free agency now, go get Simmons or May, it simplifies your strategy. And what Brian Callahan has said now multiple times, and now what Rand has said is, it's like the 5th time they've talked about how great the tackle class is and that they are going to, they're alluding to in every single thing that they say, they're going to draft tackles. potentially.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm with you. I would go ahead and just wrap it up and grant you the freedom to do what you need to do into the draft instead of. I
agree.
always approach the draft from a free agency perspective, and in free agency, I want to fill as many holes as I can with capable starters. Doesn't have to be elite, doesn't have to be great, doesn't even have to be good, just capable starters. So I don't have an obvious plan for everybody else to see, right? Like if signing Andres Pete does not prevent you from drafting Joe Alt, but it does keep a little bit of the guessing game out there available, right? Like it kind of is like, okay, well, maybe they are more willing to trade back because they have Andres Pete. So maybe I can now a team that wasn't going to approach you, maybe I can move something around. I don't know. But I always like the less holes I have heading into the draft, the
Yep.
better. And safety seems like a really, really easy one to go ahead and cross off the grocery list, Mark. Just take it off.
It's the easiest one. That is
Yes.
for sure. Bo says keeping their options open if the best available is a DB. That's certainly a possibility. And Zach, you've said this before. Like if they get to 38 and they don't have any of the edge rushers or receivers or offensive linemen or anybody that they truly value, and their best available is Kool-Aid McKinstry or Tyler Nubin, we've said all along that's not terrible decision making to go do that. Or if it's a wide receiver, not terrible decision making to still go best
I would
available.
assume that Tyler Nubin is the only second round safety that I'd be willing to spend to pick on 38.
Agree.
So if he's there, yeah, I'm kind of for it, but I also kind of don't like drafting a safety that high. But hey, it worked for the Lions, I guess.
That you can get great ones at that spot, but we'll see. So one quick note, and I want a final conversation about Rand, then we'll talk Houston and then edge rushers. And of course, all of this brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. The links to purchase tickets to our Sinkers Beverages draft party with Edley's and Lachlan table and some special guests and lots of cool stuff. Obviously, they're all in the YouTube comment section right now. Those links are available. So in any of the shows, the last 3 shows we've done. So go check those out. And please get your tickets now because they will sell out and they will not be available. So Kingston Group, of course, also is another great sponsor of the show and has been a proud partner of 440 Sports for years now. And so if you need them for anything at all, to buying a house, selling a house, building a house, renovating a house, remodeling a house, renting out a house, it doesn't matter. The Kingston Group will help you with your problem, whatever that problem may be. They will maximize your return on investment. So buildkg.com is the website. Make sure you check them out. One quick note real quickly. I thought this was fascinating. He told the story about the Ridley signing, and he said, well, me and Chad had an interesting conversation, and we had to basically take the night off and come back and talk about it the next morning. That tells me that Chad Brinker maybe didn't want the Calvin Ridley contract. Not that he didn't want Calvin Ridley, but that he didn't love the contract and then ran one out on that. And then when he told a great story about how when it broke, Amy Adams Strunk didn't actually know about it and found out about it outside of the thing. That's just an interesting note. I don't think it means anything. I don't think any personnel department agrees 100% on everything ever. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I did think that was interesting.
But also, if you were one of those people who thought that Chad Brinker, because of his title, was Rand Carthon's boss.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not.
But there were people out there that
which brings me ultimately to just a quick overview of Rand. And I think Carthon, as someone who is sort of always going, I'm not sure who to blame for the Vrabel Rand stuff, or how much did Carthon get credit for the draft class, and how much was Vrabel, and the free agent signing and bringing DeAndre Hopkins here. Was that more Carthon than it was Vrabel? Or there's just been a lot of gray area for that chunk of time. I think now that Vrabel's been gone, and that was sort of a clunky process as well. Obviously, more with Amy, I guess. But the hiring of Brian Callahan was a pretty fluid, pretty smooth, pretty well done process. They got their guy. Doesn't mean he's the right answer, but they got their guy. The process was good. Hiring of the coaching staff has been pretty solid. The signing of free agency has been a very well executed process, even though they had to change in the middle of it, which means they're doing their job very well. So far, since the firing of Vrabel, they've done nothing but show us that they know what they're doing for now. And so I want to be the first one to say, as someone who is constantly cynical and constantly raising questions and constantly asking everyone to prove to me what they're doing, have to be the first one to say I think the processes have been improved over the last 3 or 4 months, and I want to make sure we're pointing that out.
Yep.
So there you go.
I
Okay.
agree. I mean,
would you have
how
traded?
my feelings on Rand Carthon?
No, I know.
So.
I know. Would you have traded a second-round pick for Stephon Diggs in 2025?
No, because you don't have a third-round pick in 2025.
That's true. That's true.
So yeah, it took me a second to get there, but I got there.
So here is the supporting cast for CJ Stroud, just at the skill position players. Your number 1 receiver is Nico Collins. Your number 2 receiver is Stephon Diggs. Your number 3 receiver is Tank Dell. Your number 4 receiver is Noah Brown. You have Dalton Schultz at tight end. You have Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce at running back. That is extraordinary. To where this team was 2 years ago with CJ Stroud and bringing Slowick back. They didn't lose their play caller. There's continuity there. I assume the NFL catches up to Stroud a little bit, but that Stroud catches up to the NFL a little bit as well. And now you've added Mixon and Diggs to the conversation. This is going to be a dangerous offense. And at the same time, the Bills continue to jettison pieces left and right and continue to say that they might be in a rebuild situation. Still going to be good because of Josh Allen. But they don't feel like oh man, it's Bills, Chiefs, whoever, like we said the last few years. It's Chiefs, but there's a big gap now between them and the Bills, and I think the Texans have taken an even further step. Are you in on this? They went from plus 140 to plus 115 to win the AFC South. It's clearly their division to lose now.
I like the moves from a perspective of capitalizing on how quick a Super Bowl window can shut. And you know what you have in your quarterback. You're confident in your quarterback. You're confident that you'll at least have one more year of your offensive play caller. Why not make these moves?
I get it. Yeah.
But when is the last super team that has ever won the Super Bowl? And I know that nobody is Patrick Mahomes, but there's a difference between talent collecting and team building. And the Texans are doing a lot of talent collecting. This is going to tell us more about D'Amico Ryans than it is about anybody else, because you have brought in a lot of individuals and you have paid them a lot of money, and you have to make all the pieces work now. Every piece has to work. This is going to tell us a lot more about the coaches and the players. I think we all know that Joe Mixon and Stephon Diggs are both on borrowed time right now. We know that Stephon Diggs is a headache. Danico Autry is a ticking time bomb as well. At any point, at his age, at any point, it could just happen.
Oh, you're talking about the talent on the field.
Yeah, talent on the field. I mean, Joe Mixon and Stephon Diggs both have a little bit of, their own issues, but I'm just talking about they're both on, all three of those guys are on the wrong side.
And when you say
Danielle Hunter has a hard time staying healthy, so a lot of these expensive pieces do have a lot of question marks. I just think that it says more about D'Amico Ryans. If he can make it all work, you got to make it work in these next 2 years. If you don't come away with the Super Bowl, you're looking at almost what you just got from Stephon Diggs, which is a team like with Josh Allen as their quarterback that seems kind of directionless and rudderless, and they are now having to sell all the parts because they never won a Super Bowl. Now, listen, Josh Allen buys them a lot of leeway, but he's no Patrick Mahomes.
I think what's interesting, so they have an out after 1 year with Diggs, so they could just let him go. They could just cut him next year. It's funny. I wasn't thinking super team on the offense because of all those pieces they've developed, right? With Pierce and Dell and Collins.
Pierce did shit.
No,
I know because I kept him as a fantasy football player. He did shit last year.
No, I know. Singletary was better down the stretch for sure. I'm just saying, like,
terrible.
He was a draft pick. So was Collins. So was Dell. They sort of Stroud as a draft pick. Like, they built the offense through the draft. But when you add in the defensive pieces, Autry, Alshire, and Hunter, namely, then you can start saying, okay, this was we're going all in on CJ Stroud's rookie contract here. They have a very winnable division. All of it makes sense to me in the short term because they can get rid of Diggs if they want to next year. And I agree with you. I think it says a lot about Ryans and Slowick in probably what is their last year together running things. this is your chance. This is your window. I don't have a problem with them going for it. So
No, I don't either.
yeah.
We have seen this story before, so
Yes, yes.
I think there should be a lot of skepticism.
Yep.
Even though I know a lot of people are going to be saying Super Bowl, but once they got to the playoffs last year, good teams will take you down. And I'm not saying that's going to happen this year. They are a good team. They will be my pick to win the AFC South.
Sure.
Do I think that they are going to get anywhere far into the playoffs? We'll have to see all these pieces work.
Watch how I tie this back to the Titans. They were completely dominated by an extraordinary game plan by Denard Wilson.
Yeah.
In the playoffs, the Ravens completely dominated them. I still think it's Baltimore and the Chiefs, and then I think Houston's total ceiling upside is 3 seed best case scenario. Because again, you win a division, you get a 3 or 4 seed.
Yeah, probably because the AFC East will beat themselves up like they tend to do. But I mean, to be honest, there could be a chance where the Texans. Listen, Sneed has shut down Diggs. Cheeto has shut down Diggs as well. So I mean, it's not like. I'm just saying. I don't think it's like I think it's gonna be. It's obviously a 2-horse race in my opinion. Right now in the AFC South, and that's kind of where we were a couple of weeks ago. We'll see what Anthony Richardson is the ceiling for the Colts. I'm still picking the Jags to be last in the division because I think it'll be hilarious.
It would,
but if we'll see what the draft does because I think that a lot of maybe the issues or the cracks in the armor that I see for this Texans team will probably be solved in this draft. So I'm kind of interested to see what their draft, what direction does their draft take? Because they're a team that does not have many holes of capable starters. So they suffered, and we have talked about this. They have suffered. They have put in a plan that is going to be a pretty good plan if they continue to hit on things. If D'Amico Ryans continues to evolve and does not become stagnant like Sean McDermott or Mike Vrabel. If Billy Slowick or whoever replaces Billy Slowick is just as good as him and is not Todd Downing and is not Tim Kelly, like that those are the pieces that have to come into play for the Texans for them to build sustainable success.
Stoney says this John Mechie erasure. How about Xavier Hutchinson erasure? I like Xavier Hutchinson as well. That's
Noah Brown erasure.
I said Noah Brown's name. Oh, okay. I think Mechie and Hutchinson as like your 5 and 6 are pretty fucking ridiculous. That's insane to me. I've always really liked Hutchinson. So here's what I would say, because you said 1-2 horse race. I think it's a 1-horse race for the division title in Houston, and then I think it's a 3 colt race for the wild card potentially. I think all 3 teams. I would not be surprised if it's Jacksonville, Indianapolis, or Tennessee competing for 8 or 9 wins and fighting for a wild card spot. I do think because the AFC is so good, you need to get to 10 probably. I think Harbaugh's going to have the Chargers getting to 10. So.
The Texans' schedule is much, much, much tougher. If you want to talk about a schedule that is tough, the Texans have a super tough schedule ahead, and that needs to be factored in when people are talking about all this, all this trajectory and everything. They have a first-place schedule. The Titans have a fourth-place schedule, so that that's going to come into play.
Yeah. No, it will. It will. So. All right, thank you. That's all I wanted to say about Houston. Just had to talk about it. Going to get Stephon Diggs on top of what they've already done this year. It feels like it's here and it's today and it's now. And yes, Chef Rand says, can y'all explain to the national media that the Texans didn't have a 1-year turnaround? They were horrible for 3 straight years before Stroud. Yes, that's absolutely
we have told
place. Yes, we've said that all the time. That's because we know more about the AFC South and the Titans and the Texans than the national media does. All right, let's get to some like round by round targets for edge and defensive line. We did this for the offensive line on Monday, and so we'll do this here. We kind of talked a little bit about guys we'd stay away from on Monday. So if you want to go back and listen to sort of our quote unquote busts for the first or second round, go back and listen to that. We're staying away from Chop Robinson. The Latu kid out of UCLA is maybe not a target. If they're going to take an edge rusher or a defensive lineman in the first round, my number one, it has to be a trade back. I don't think there's anybody that I would feel comfortable with drafting at 7. But if they get back to 11 or 13 or 17 or 18 or whatever, I think we know Dallas Turner certainly on the table and on the board and in the mix then. Do you think Byron Murphy is a piece that they should consider in that range?
No, I would say Jazon Newton is the guy that you take in that range. I'm not a big Byron Murphy guy. I think I'm
Okay.
one of the. I know we're few in numbers, and I think Tavondre Sweat was the better one last year, and I think Tavondre Sweat will be the better overall pro. I think in a trade back,
Or Jared Verse,
it would
I
have
guess,
to
the other
be
one.
a trade back where you get a lot and move away from the top 2 or 3 offensive tackles. That's just kind of where I'm at. I love Dallas Turner. I don't like him as much as Will Anderson. I like Jared Verse, but that's talking about the Cleveland. You wouldn't even get those guys down there. You would have to trade into the 20s for me to think that you're getting a good value, and you better get plus value in return on the draft. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I just don't see a path where you get either of those guys.
I think if you're somewhere in the low teens, like 17, 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there, I think it's
Let's
Turner.
bring it back with the Bengals.
I think it's Turner 1, Verse 2, probably Newton or Murphy 3 and 4, probably in that order. And I'm not sure there's anybody else I would consider. I don't want Chop Robinson. I don't want Latu. I don't think there's anybody else I consider in the first round if I'm going defensive line or edge rusher at that point. So we kind of covered a little bit of that on Monday, so we can kind of move on to 38 and number 2. You guys know I love Darius Robinson. Here's the name and I know you love Tavondre Sweat, so we both like those guys. The name that is now moving up my list that I think is in play at 38 is our boy out of Clemson, Rook. I think.
Oh, you listen.
I think Rook,
I spent all day Monday at Stacking the Inbox. I dedicated a whole episode to Rook Horhor or whatever his last name is. I love Rook, and I would him and Tavondre Sweat. I have higher than Darius Robinson, and so in the second round, when you're talking about Rook next to and I could be talked into Chris Jenkins or Braden Fisk, but when I am talking get me hard as hell. Raging boners. It's Tavondre Sweat and Ruka Horhor.
Like a full Chubb, a full Bradley Chubb.
I mean,
not a half Chubb.
I mean, it is a skyscraper busting out of here. I'll be poking people's eyes out when we're drinking whiskey.
Easy, big guy. You're not that tall. You're not that tall.
Listen, that's what they do to me. I mean, they literally write my genetic code.
Okay, all right.
I am all in on those two guys. And I do like Brendan Dorless. I have a hard time figuring out what Brendan Dorless is. Maybe he is just a Danico Autry. Maybe he is just, this or that. But to me, Tavondre Sweat, I am Rook number 1, Tavondre Sweat number 2, Darius Robinson number 3. I'm just in love with Rook. Everything that he does, he's explosive, he's fast, he's feisty, he's got hands, he's got attitude. Everything that Rook does, I love.
So I think there's two groups of players here. I think there's guys that you take at 38. And my guy first is Darius Robinson, who I think really actually is Danico Autry. I think that's actually how he profiles. And the versatility, he's not going to be your speed edge rusher. You've got that already in Key and Landry. You need somebody who's a little bit more, sort of a tweener there that can slide in and play different roles on different downs. That's why I like Darius Robinson. Number 2 is Rook for me. And then number 3 would be Sweat. I think there's another group of players, though. So 38, there's those 3 guys for me. I think hypothetically a trade back to 50, let's say, give or take a few spots, 50 or 55. Then I think there's a whole collection of guys that includes the guys you mentioned. I think Brandon Dorless is in that group. Chris Jenkins is in that group. Braden Fisk is in that group. I think you have to move down to that group, and you need to move back a few spots. I'm not sure any of those guys I love at 38, but I kind of really like him at 52. So I think
I would agree with that.
That's a next
Chris
tier.
Braswell at 38, but it's going to really depend on who else is on the board for me to be Chris Braswell's that 4th guy that I'm fine with, but I want to see who else is there. So here's where I'm at with Root. And this is how it was with Justin Matabuke when he was coming out as a prospect. I loved Justin Matabuke as a prospect. I love Rook. In 4 years, when free agency comes around, everybody's going to be saying, man, I really hope Ruka Horioho comes out and hits free agency because I want my team to sign him. And guess what? He ain't going to hit free agency. He's going to get franchise tag. Then he's going to get an extension for whatever team he's on because he's going to be that good. I am putting the full weight of my draft predictions on Ruko Horo being the best second-round defensive lineman.
What do you think is a higher priority for the team? Is it a hand in the dirt, true tackle, or even versatile end with Simmons? Is it a true pass rusher that's off the edge? Like Dallas Turner is a pure outside linebacker pass rusher off the edge. Latu is a pure pass rusher off the edge. Yeah. Whereas Darius Robinson, a little bit more versatility. Rook is the versatility Denico Autry guy as well. Like, what do you think is a higher priority for the defense?
The way they talk and the way they've approached free agency, I would assume edge. Really? like a straight guy straight across, like a Chris Braswell,
Jared Verse,
Braylon Trice, a guy like that can actually line up and be the guy that comes in from that side. Maybe you could get that in Adisa Isaac. You could get that, who I like better than his counterpart, Chop Robinson. Maybe you get that in Austin Booker. But maybe one of the Murphys who test really well and who have really good stats. You got Mo Kamara. And I know we're kind of getting into it, but like that's kind of where I'm at, is that like I think edge is the priority, but I think that is the harder position to draft in this draft.
Agree.
Because where you are currently slotted in your draft position is going to be really hard, especially with so many other needs. So I think really to answer your question, the most realistic way to attack it is to go for the guy that can either go straight hand in the dirt or do both. Not the guy. I think it's going to be really hard to find the guy that can stand up and be the opposite of Harold Landry.
Like, is Marshawn Nealand in that group?
I like Marshawn
in the second round.
I like Jalix Hunt. To me, Jalix Hunt is a guy that is, I don't know how he's still going. He's so far down the list, personally. But to me, Jalix Hunt is a guy that was at the Senior Bowl, tested really well. I think he's going to be really good. I would say that he probably goes, I think he goes higher than what people think, but I don't know. The general consensus is that, like, you can't even draft him on PFF. Like, what the fuck is that? You can't even draft Jalix Hunt on PFF.
Yeah. I got, so let's go to 106 here, top of the fourth round. I got Braden Fisk in a recent mock draft at like a 106.
That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. I don't think Chris Jenkins falls that far, but he's a no-brainer if you take him there. Dorless, same thing. So there's a lot of those guys in that second tier that if they fall, you automatically do it. Who are you targeting at 106 that you think could be available, but also as somebody you like for the Titans?
I like other players, just so we can clarify to everybody. We're doing just this position by round by round. These are not players that I would prefer over a wide receiver or anything.
Here, I'll set you up.
Dwayne Carter, McKinley Jackson are two guys that are really high on my list in the fourth round. It seems Leonard Taylor keeps falling down consensus draft boards. I don't agree that he's going to be there, but I could be talked into a Leonard Taylor there more than I could in the second round. But to me, I think out of the realistic options, you're looking at Mason Smith. I think Mason Smith could still be there.
That's who I want. I want.
But he's rising up draft boards too. I like Dwayne Carter, McKinley Jackson, Mekhi Wingo is another guy from LSU.
Yep.
Those are four guys that I think that, depending on what happens in the draft, could be there in the fourth round that provides you the juice that you need that you couldn't get in free agency or get somewhere else.
There's three that I like: Mason Smith, Mekhi Wingo, and McKinley Jackson. Those are the three that I like at 106. That if we're, and again, Derek says Javon Baker. We are talking just edge, and we are targeting edge players for every round. We did offensive line. We're going to come back and do receivers and tight ends at another time. We've got lots of weeks to go until the draft. So we're just focused on that each position sort of targets throughout the draft. And what when you do mock drafts, it's hard to know how accurate they are. But when you do mock drafts in these simulators online, which is fun about them, is that they teach you where certain players are kind of should be slotted. And so you can see these are the defensive edge rushers and linemen that I like in the first round at 12, 13, 14. These are the ones I like at 38. These are the ones I like at 106. And you can sort of see who may or may not be available at those
Gabe
spots.
Murphy, Mo Camara, those are guys that could be there at that point, and I'd be fine with this too. As far as edge guys,
it's hard to find. Here's what I'll say. It is hard to find edge rushers that I really like beyond the 38th pick.
It's hard to find edge rushers that give you more than Arden Key, because that's really what you need, right? You need something more than Arden Key, and that's the problem that they are in right now, is that they do have so many holes they still have to fill. Like, I know they want edge, but I don't think you're going to get the quality of edge that you need in this draft. Unless something crazy happens.
I agree. Unless one of those guys in the first round falls to 38, or they love, a Darius Robinson's versatility or Chris Braswell, I think your last chance to get a true edge pass rusher is right there at 38. Ed says, do you think versatility along the defensive line is big for this regime as it was in the past? My first take, and I'll let you go after this, my first take is they want everything to be versatile. Positionless football across every position, and they wanted to re-sign to Nico Autry, so that tells you how much they want the versatility.
I agree.
All right, there we go. All right, so moving on. Give me some guys you like, 5th, 6th, 7th round. You can lump them all together. It's hard to find defensive linemen and edge rushers in this stage of the draft. I think you have to use one of your first 3 picks on one if you want one.
I think 5th is, if you can't find edge and you're at the 5th round and you can go ahead and take Jalen Hunt, I'm all in. I believe in Jalen Hunt a lot. I like Jalen Hunt. I think Grayson Murphy and Nelson Caesar are guys that you could get in that range. Cedric Johnson doesn't really do it for me. You could talk me into Miles Cole as well. But other than that, I mean, you look at the edges that come through here, I'm just like, oh, this is just kind of like you kind of have to skip it if you don't find your guy. I think after the 5th round, edge rusher is going to dry up.
Now,
and so I'm kind of like, I think I'm good.
I agree. So let me throw something out at you that we did not intend to talk about, but I've noticed this. And we talk about this all the time with quarterback. And I think it's okay to talk about it with edge rushers. Next year, there is a chance you have 4 or 5 top 10 edge rushers in the draft. Doesn't mean they're all going to go there. Somebody might fall down a board or move up a board. But James Pierce out of Tennessee, Harold Perkins out of LSU, you got Ethan Burke out of Texas, you got Landon Jackson out of Arkansas, both Ohio State players. There's a chance you have 4 or 5 edge guys that grade out at sort of like the way the tackle class is graded out this year. You could have 5 or 6 guys that are like in that top 15 range. So just a note to keep an eye on, just something to think about, that if you can't get your edge guy in the first 2 picks, which I think you have to do, you could get a defensive lineman, let's say at 106, Mason Smith, Wingo, Jackson, whatever, knowing full well that you go into next year's draft because you drafted a tackle and you've signed a corner and receiver, that edge might be your number 1 need going into the draft next year. And there's a good edge class in the first round potentially next year. Just worth pointing out.
Yeah. I will say this, your defensive line is filled with guys that you could take chances on that could probably turn into maybe tier charts, maybe Danico Autry's, the high-end guys that are better than Sebastian Joseph Day or could develop into better than Sebastian Joseph Day. I mean, you look at Logan Lee, Jordan Jefferson, Gabe Hall, Keith Randolph Jr., Jaden Crumedy, Fabian Lovett, I think, who is going way too low. I think he'll go actually a lot higher than what people have him at. But those are just some of the names that, I mean, because you got the kids from Auburn, Justin Rogers, Marcus Harris.
I like those guys too.
So you got a lot in that 6th, 7th round where if you miss out on maybe a Tavondre Sweat or one of those, you decide to pivot, in the 2nd round, do something different. There are, I think the defensive line class is kind of a little sneaky underrated with its depth. And
I completely agree.
I think that that's one of those classes where you're going to be like, man, there was a lot of defensive linemen in this class that turned into capable starters.
And it's why I think Mason Smith is going to skyrocket, because if he doesn't get hurt, he is a top 35, top 40
Yeah.
pick. And so I think he's going to move up board. So I don't think he's there at 106, but if he is, you take him right away. I think he's going to have a great NFL career. I feel like him the way you feel about Rook, but like in a different tier. So anyway, I agree with you. I think the defensive line class is worth taking a chance on in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. I think if you can get a great edge in the 1st or 2nd, go for it. But I think otherwise that's not necessarily the position you need to address. You can make do with what you got, Landry, Key, and Weaver. You can make do with that if you have a good interior and some good secondary pieces, which Rand Carthon, by the way, acknowledged. He said, we used to have a great front line. Now we are inverted and have a really good secondary. They've got to go address the trenches in the draft. That's what they're going to do. All right. Make sure you check out tickets to our Sinkers draft party. Of course, the links are available in the YouTube comments. Make sure you go click on those links and buy those tickets. They are limited time only. First come, first serve. $40 for Thursday. All you can eat, all you can drink. Edley's Barbecue. Going to have a great time. Going to do a live show there. Stoney, Zach, and myself will be there. And then Friday, super intimate 3-course dinner, Lachlan table, special guest, off-the-record conversation. And we're going to sit down and we're going to watch rounds 2 and 3. It's going to be a ton of fun. Tickets are available for that night as well, but only a couple left. So make sure you check that out. And thank you to Sinkers. All that money, of course, goes to charity to support Our Kids Foundation. The Kingston Group as well, buildkg.com. So do support them. Remember that name if you need anything. And stackingtheinbox.com. You got, Easton and the Hot Read podcast. You got Football and Other F Words. You got Music City Audible, all the other great shows. And right now, if you want to jump on over to the Paul Kaharski podcast YouTube page, he is going to be live momentarily if he's not already. So go check that out. Don't go anywhere. Stick it right here. This is what we do. We do this for you guys. So thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. For Zach, I am Braden. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will talk to you guys on Monday.